Linda, I was disappointed to see that Greater Shepparton Council is the latest to say no to Australia Day, January 26. They're joining what I don't know is either a significant minority or now 50-50 of councils about what happens on that particular date. But again, you're somebody who has to be across both sides and all the rest, so I'm going to help you off the fence here for a second. Do you think that something as significant as what is our community's attitude towards that day? Shouldn't there be some level of plebiscite before councils make these decisions? Shouldn't this be part of the platform that a councillor runs on? Because, sadly, local government seems to be the least informed electoral decisions that we seem to make, because unless there's party affiliation, unless you're very particularly aware of the local independent, it's still compulsory. You turn up and go, mate, who's Frank? Blah, blah, well, yeah, these sorts of things. But something as consequential as that. I'm not talking about passing a law, but do you think just as a way of doing it, that in order, if it is the true reflected opinion of the community, then okay. But if it's just 10 people sitting around doing it in the second year of the term, hoping nobody will notice, that seems to me to be a little out of step with the whole purpose of representative democracy.
Look, of course, there's 537 councils and we all do things very differently. That's the hallmark of local government. But there's never been a councillor I've met who's not seen performing citizenship ceremonies as one of the most significant, vital things that we do as elected mayors and councillors. And it is, of course, a really significant honour. We know that a range of councils, and I don't have the numbers, but it's not a majority, don't hold citizenship ceremonies on Australia Day for a range of reasons. In many places, including from where James is from, it's extremely hot on the 26th of January, and so councils tend to hold them, in the evening the night before, or perhaps in the morning the next day.
They still put some bunting up, though. Well, you can still have an Australian flag out in the sun.
It's of course also the case that many councils, particularly regional councils, are running on the smell of an oily rag, and running an event on a public holiday is very expensive.
But if
and
they've
so
got
often
Chinese New Year banners, maybe they could make Happy Australia Day ones.
Well, many of them do. I mean, the City of Sydney even flies Australia Day banners. So, councils do celebrate these things, and a small number of councils don't do it in response to concerns from their Indigenous communities. But there's a real diversity. I want to point out that even under the Morrison government, the Australia Day Awards for the federal government were not held on Australia Day. They were held the night before. So this is a common practice by all forms of government. And in the City of Sydney, my council, we have enormous celebrations. We have this enormous Yarbin Festival in the afternoon that celebrates Indigenous culture. We often have citizenship ceremonies in the morning, although not every year. There's boat races out on the harbour. There's a huge number of things, many of them put on by the city and many of them put on by the state government. So the message is there's a diversity of approach. Everybody does what suits their local community, and that's the job of a local government.
Warney would be proud. There was some good spin on that. I like the Morrison government moved Australia Day. Hang on, the Australia Day Awards, which for 10, 15 years have been on television the night before, so that we wake up to whom is the Australian of the year, or the people who don't get it can be dispersed back across the country.
There's valid reasons, is my point, for not holding the ceremony on the day for a very diverse range.
But James, what about that fundamental idea, right? Because, again, we can go round and round and round about whether it should or shouldn't, right? But I just don't understand why cultural conservatives, traditionalists, whatever, don't actually try to run for council, and as one of their platforms they say, I will always vote to keep Australia Day where it is, right? I will always make sure there's a national day. Instead, it's a conversation had by state politicians, federal politicians, whereas I get it. It's very expensive to get a senator up, but geez, it'd be okay to get the odd culturally conservative mayor up, wouldn't you think?
Oh, look, I think you'd be lynched as a councillor if you suggested you'd do away with Australia Day in Queensland as a council. Look, this old chestnut normally comes up in December. A month out from Australia Day. Look, this is only coming up again because we've got the voice. It shouldn't be debated. Can we put this to bed? Can we have a national plebiscite at the next election and just get this over and done with, so that councils need to stick in their own lane, can I just say as well. You've been charged to do something, commissioned to do something on behalf of the federal government. Just do it. Shut up. Deal with the rates, the rubbish, fix the potholes, Go to hell otherwise, because we're sick to death of hearing about councils dictating Australia Day. Stop
James,
it.
councils are the most trusted level of government, actually, in this nation.
No,
Of any
you're
level
not.
of government,
No, you're
local
not.
governments
You're
are
not
consistently
recognised
the most
constitutionally,
trusted level
not
of
one
government.
bit. The Australian people voted at a referendum to say to you guys, stick in your own lane.
That may
we
be
only
true, and yet
recognise in
we're
the
the most
Constitution,
trusted. We're
state
offering
and
certainly
federal,
hundreds of
service-
stick in
different
your own lane.
services.
All right.